I feel slightly nervous about this interview. I don't know why. I can't remember. What did I do? Oh, yes. I was woken up by the kids. I was woken up by the girls at 6 o'clock, and I was really tired. I didn't sleep that well last night. They came downstairs, I gave them a cuddle, and then I just said to them, look, girls, you're going to have to play or watch TV for a little bit because I'm going to have to go back to sleep. And they weren't impressed. And then I was woken up again by my brother who was ringing me. It's all to do with my dad, and we're still dealing with his estate, and it's all a bit of a mess. Yeah, so that's how my day started. That's also the reason I didn't really sleep well last night. So there you go. So usually I work on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's changed a little bit this past week because it's been Christmas week. The last couple of months, because I'm doing this challenge, I will do outside exercise first thing in the morning. And my readings, I have to do 10 pages of nonfiction at the moment. I've started doing the reading in the morning while I'm on the exercise bike. And because the kids, they often sort of want to be able to see me in the morning, God knows why, because I look a state. I'll do the outside exercise in the garden. So I can wave to them, they can pull faces. Yeah, and so that's how it starts. And then we all get ready. I sort the kids' snacks out. I always drop the girls at school. But sometimes I'll take the three of them. Sasha's nursery is in a different place. And then from there I go to work, and then I'm usually at work until, well, it depends really, but I probably get home around 8ish. And by that point the kids are asleep. I try and make it home for bedtime, but often I miss it if it's a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And then I'll do my evening exercise, my indoor exercise, and Jem and I will have some supper, and that's kind of it. I think I've probably grabbed hold of the obsessions at the moment to try and cope with everything that the year has thrown at me. So one thing is this 75 hard challenge that I'm doing. I'm quite focused on doing it and getting, succeeding at it. And you could say that, that I'm being a bit obsessive about it because, there was no let up over Christmas or anything like that. No mince pies over Christmas. It's very sad. No mulled wine either. The last few weeks before Christmas, it's all been a bit higgledy-piggledy because there was a positive case in their class. One of their teachers tested positive for COVID. They then had to come home and isolate for 2 weeks. So I took some annual leave. Jem took some annual leave just so we could look after them. And then they went back to school, and then it happened again. So this time one of their classmates tested positive for COVID, and they had to isolate. I had to then take one of the work laptops home and just deal with all the telephone calls, so obviously not face-to-face ones, which was quite interesting because I'd be up here in the study and then I'd get, mama, she's taken my Pokemon, it's my turn. So it's all been quite varied, I have to say. I've stopped feeling guilty about, the fact that we're not always doing things with them. So, this time last year I was trying to arrange a whole bunch of stuff, Father Christmas experiences and all that jazz. And yeah, I think the year before we went to a snow dome where they did sledging and this kind of thing. And it was great. But, this year we've not been able to do any of that. And in some ways, it was actually a bit of a relief, that I don't have to, arrange all that stuff. They can have a perfectly nice time at home. And actually, I don't feel bad about plonking them in front of the TV. That's fine. Well, sometimes a needs must, right? Sometimes you just have to do it. So I think, yeah, I've become a lot more relaxed from that point of view. I'm definitely not going to lose this lesson that sometimes it's okay to sit back, and it's okay to, to relax and to not do a million and one things. So it's fine to, to organize a few things because now we are able to, but that doesn't mean that we have to sort of jam pack every single experience in. It's not necessary, and they're perfectly happy without all of that. If I sort of rewind slightly to sort of November, December 2019, I was preparing for um, an exam an exam in general practice, so I can work as a qualified GP. And so my focus was on that, really. That I needed to. I always saw it as a very big hurdle, and I kind of decided, okay, I've got to bite the bullet now and sit it. So that was sort of around November, December time. Now, my dad had been, I suppose he'd been frail for some time. He was diagnosed just after my girls were born with Lewy body disease, which you get Parkinson's and then you get the dementia associated with that at the same time. And my dad was, like, for a long time, he was pretty good with it. But he took a real nosedive around Christmas 2019. So around, so just before Christmas, he was admitted to hospital. And I was always, he would often get admitted to hospital with a fall, or sent to A&E with a fall because of his, the Parkinsonism. And I would always have to ring A&E and say, look, this is his Parkinson's. That's the reason why he's had this fall. Please don't keep him in unless you absolutely have to, because it's not going to do him good. And every time they would listen to me. This time they didn't. And I felt slightly uneasy about him being in hospital. They weren't able to provide the same care that they gave him in the care home. And I visited him on Christmas Day, and he was, you could really tell he had deteriorated so much. I was like, please, can he go back to the care home? They're so good with him. And a few days later, yes, he did go back, and he was in such a state, and then he made a great recovery. So it took all his reserves to make that recovery, and then he didn't recover anymore, and then he just started slipping down. And that's how 2020 started. So I put basically when I was studying for this exam, which was at the end of January, and then I just kind of put that all on the back burner. And I took the kids, so Jem and the kids came as well. I just wanted them to see him. I wanted him to see them. And he was sitting there and he just kind of nodded his acknowledgement. It was really awful. And Malika was in tears. She said, is Babaji going to die? And I said to her, look, I think he's going to be with Hasnuba soon. He's going to be with his brother. And they were so close, and he's going to be really pleased to see him. She was only 5 at the time, and it was so hard. And I was basically every day I was going to my dad, bar maybe 1 or 2 days when I couldn't, because of kids or work or whatever. But I would go there, and I would stay from morning until very late in the evening. And then the 9th of January was Asha's birthday, and I just said to Jem, you have a lovely day with Asha. I'm gonna have to go and see my dad. And Jem was like, no, why? It's his birthday, and you can go tomorrow, and it's just one day. And I said, no, I have to go. And I knew that was the day that he was going to die. I don't know how. His sister had visited earlier on that day. His partner had visited. My mum had visited. Tariq had visited the day before. He lives in Geneva, but he had been in town, so he had seen him. And so it got to the evening, and it was just me and him in the room. And his breathing was really, I could tell it was difficult for him to keep breathing. And my dad was always afraid of death, and I think that's partly why I wanted to stay with him. And I held his hand, and I just said, Dad, if you want to go and be with Hasnuba, then that's okay. And then my dad took this really deep breath in, and for a second I thought that I'd offended him. But I hadn't, because he took this really deep breath in, and then he just started doing very irregular breathing. which I recognize the type of breathing. It's kind of, it's the breathing you do just before you die. And so then I just started I went through every family member and I said, I love you, Tarek loves you, even mum loves you, even though they would infuriate each other. Sarosh, his partner, I said, she loves you. I went through his sisters. And then the carers came in and said, oh, we need to turn your dad. And I just went like this, I put my hand there and I said, he's going. And I just carried on saying, whoever loves you. And he was doing this irregular breathing and then he just stopped. And I just kind of put my head on the pillow next to him and I said, well, I told Malika you were going to go and be with Hasnuba, and that's where you are, and that's okay. And then I just burst into tears. And then it was just this kind of, January was taken over by my dad, and the funeral we organized, Tarek and I organized for the following week. And then, I also had Ash's birthday party in between all of that. So 2 days later, I had to go back to Warwick. So I went, registered my dad's death and went back to Warwick. Had this kind of 3-year-old's party in in this soft play place. It was so surreal. And then went back to London, to the funeral. It was awful. And then I had this exam, and I think if I was in any decent frame of mind, I would have cancelled the exam. But I just kind of went in there, and I had my dad's old handkerchief in my pocket. And you're not allowed anything in your pockets. And they said, "Can you empty your pockets?" And I said, "Look, this is my dad's handkerchief. Can I keep it?" And they said, "Yeah, okay, you can keep the handkerchief. There's no formula written on it. There's nothing on there." Yeah, and then I did the exam. I passed the exam, but somehow I don't know what was going on in my head. From then, it wasn't long before we just entered lockdown, and all the madness that created. I thought I was getting through it, but I think, people say something about anniversaries, don't they? And we're coming up to his first anniversary, and so it's all coming back. I'd say I'm still wading through it. Yeah. I've always had a fear of death, which I think I've managed to let go of this year. I think that's one really positive thing, actually, about the year. And I wonder if, a lot of this goes back to when I saw, when I was with my dad during his last moments. And I really wonder if Hasnuba was somehow there, and whether my dad was able to perceive him, because it was so immediate. It was, "Dad, if you want to be with him, that's okay." And then it was like, boom. It was, that was it. His response was, "Okay then." So yeah, and I've done a lot of reading since then, and reflecting, and seeing Selena as well, after she passed. I kind of, maybe it's my way of dealing with it, I don't know, but I feel like there has to be something beyond this life. They have to be somewhere, and so therefore, why am I afraid of it? So I shouldn't be afraid of it. I've always been slightly ambivalent about my religion, and that's not changed, actually. The kids are a smiley mainly because it was important to my family more than the fact that it was important to me. Spirituality, yes, I would say I've definitely been focusing on that side of things this year. So I've been reflecting and reading and thinking around those topics. And I wouldn't say I'm more spiritual, because I don't think I've kind of reached this kind of state of enlightenment where I'm sort of going like this and able to let go of everything, and that's definitely not what's going on. But I think I've developed this awareness that there is this extra dimension out there that I've perhaps not tapped into, but it is there, it exists. Sadness, a big one, and confusion. Those are the biggies with Selena. Yeah, I wish I could turn back the clock, but I can't. So here we are. I'd make more of an effort to understand what was going on inside her head. And perhaps that sounds selfish. Maybe she didn't want me to know what was going on in her head. I don't know. Oh, that would be with Jem. He's so non-judgmental. I mean, I've done some crazy stuff, and I can share it with him, and he's so reasoned. I don't know. He's been a bit of a rock this year. I mean, our relationship hasn't always been easy. Um, I think that's often the case with relationships and marriages. When Jem and I first met and decided to get married, we were living in Kew in London. We were both fairly, I don't know, we were both in our mid 30s, pushing late 30s. We weren't exactly young, but we were, I suppose we were a bit more carefree. We had these images of setting up a home together, having kids together, and all of that. And we faced difficulties from that point of view. Kids are hard as well. It's not sort of, like sandwiches in the park with everyone skipping around. Blowing bubbles, like all that. But yeah, so I suppose we've had to face life and life's challenges and everything that 2020 has brought. We always knew our hairs would get grey eventually. Perhaps it's happening sooner rather than later, but that's okay. But yeah, I would say he's the most significant person, and the relationship with him has been the most important this year. University friends when I was in Wales, and they, over the past year, and I think this may be to do with lockdown, we've become a lot more close. And they were always, they were always my lovely friends, and we were always in touch. And we started, I think it was before lockdown, I sort of set up a WhatsApp group, and so technology also played a part in it. And then we were sort of a bit more in touch through that. And then when lockdown started, we ended up doing Zoom calls together on quite a regular basis. And they've been a very big, support network as well. I mean, often they're most of the time, they're all quite crude and, funny, and they're sort of, they've got sense of humor. So most of the conversations are pretty lighthearted, but just, to have them there, and, they've known that it's not been the easiest year for me as well. And they've been very supportive, and I think their sort of friendship has come to the forefront a lot more. It's got to be the kids. They come up with such hilarious stuff. Soraya the other day, she put a little note. She likes writing little notes, and she put a little note. She said, "To everyone from the Queen." So she's pretending to be the Queen. She spelled the Queen wrong, so she spelled it Queen. And then she said, "Save the forests and the rainforests." That was it. That was her message from the Queen, and she just stuck it on the door for us all to see as we came down the next morning. Asher, my littlest, he's going to be 4 next week, actually, on the 9th of January. He's ridiculous. So the other day he decided that everyone in the world has butt cheeks apart from him. And so we're sitting at the table, and he was saying, "Oh, I don't have butt cheeks, I've got pants." I was like, "Well, what's underneath that?" He was like, "No, just my pants." And then he was deciding that everyone else had butt cheeks, so he was pointing to Malika, "Butt cheeks, butt cheeks, butt cheeks." Like every single member of the family, in a very accusatory way. Yeah, they're all 3 of them are hilarious, and they're probably the people who are making me laugh the most at the moment. Yeah. A lot of the really mindless stuff like MasterChef and Strictly Come Dancing and all of that. I've gotten into that a bit more this year. So I wouldn't say perhaps a TV program of the year, but I would say perhaps a genre, maybe. And light entertainment, I think, has really, it's hit the spot this year a lot. In addition, I would say, so Jem and I will sit down together and watch stuff. He has no interest in light entertainment. We'll watch sort of series together. And which one did we watch recently? The Undo. I think it was called The Undoing. Yeah. Anyway, it had Nicole Kidman and it had Hugh Grant in it, and yeah, it was this kind of murder mystery thing. Not, I wouldn't say it's like, this is the series of the year to watch or anything, but it's one that we've watched together, and I quite enjoyed it. I'd love to watch a film. I want the cinemas to be open. I want to go to the cinema now. I don't care what I watch. Becoming better at communicating. One thing that's really got me through and enabled Jem to be there for me is the fact that I am communicating a lot better, a lot more effectively now than I did even perhaps a year ago. I feel like the same person I was when I was, 29, 30. Except I'm probably a bit happier than I was in my 30s. I think the 30s was, I didn't quite know where I was going or what I was doing. And I say that, with understanding that this year has been difficult and has been tinged with a lot of sadness. But I like where I am generally. Being 45 is okay when you take away all the the tragedies that have happened. How would I describe myself? In no special way. I'm a regular human being. I live in Warwick. I have a family, husband and 3 kids, and I have a job, and I'm training to be a GP. So that's kind of description of me. Who I am, personally. I sometimes think, that I've been a bit self-absorbed. There's been a lot of stuff going on around me that either I've not been aware or I've chosen not to be aware because I've been focusing on myself, my family, my training, my dad, my own circumstance. So yeah, imperfect, flawed is how I would describe myself. That's who I am. I think I've been surprised by so many things this year. It's hard to, to narrow it down, but something specific to myself. I think perhaps my mental and emotional stamina. I think I've been pretty strong this year. And I didn't really see myself as a strong person, but I think maybe I am. Unexpected, challenging. I've set myself lots of challenges. I've been through lots of challenges. Sad. Stay strong, you can do this. That was it, you did it. Whoa. Oh my goodness. I've never done anything like that before, ever.